I've been doing a series of videos that are to support a new translation of the Bhagavad Gita that I just put out. It's out on Amazon. It's out on Kindle. The softcover version is still waiting to come out. And the reality is that I need to send in a new edition of it. But it'll basically be good to go by early December. But it's already out. It just, I keep editing it basically, because I want to make it the best it can possibly be, and I want to make sure that it's completely, as much as possible, unified. And I think most people wouldn't see the mistakes, but people that know the Gita would probably see it, right? So I want it to be, if my peers review it, I want them to say, yeah, he did a good job with that, right? This is a good version. And I would say, this people should get this, or might want to get this, because this is a very good version. And I think it is, actually. I think it's a very good version. As I've been saying on these videos, I've done about maybe 11 or so videos like this now to support the book, where I compare different translations. We're going to compare chapter 5, verse 26 today. But as I've been saying, no translation is perfect. I wouldn't make any claim to perfection. I wouldn't make any claim that my translation is necessarily better. I think that, I wouldn't say that it's better than any translation out there. I think all translations probably, serve their own specific purpose, and they're going to have their own readership. They're going to have, some people might like my version, some people might like Srila Prabhupada, some people might like Shivananda, some people might like, this or that version. But I would just like this to be up there, with considered to be, one of the better versions available. And I'm sure there are versions out there which really aren't that good, that really you might not want to spend your time with. I might do a whole video on talking about that specific subject, but for today, let's go through this verse, and we're going to look at about more than 18 plus different translations of a single verse. Chapter 5, verse 26, shloka 26. Kāma-krodha-viyuktānāṁ yatīnāṁ yata-chetasām abhito brahma-nirvāṇaṁ vartate vidita-ātmanām. All right. For those ascetics, yatīnā, who have freed themselves from desire and anger, kāma-krodha-viyuktānā, whose thoughts are controlled, yata-chetasā, who are knowers of the self, vidita-ātmanā, brahma-nirvāṇa lies close, abhita brahma-nirvāṇaṁ vartate. Now, I don't translate brahma-nirvāṇa here, but I have translated it elsewhere, and I think I'm going to change that. I'm gonna change what I did there, because I think that it's helpful to, because I do include the Sanskrit, right? So you have the Sanskrit, brahma-nirvāṇa. So I'm going to include a English translation of what brahma-nirvāṇa probably means. Now, if you see brahma-nirvāṇa, you might think Brahma, the creator, but it's really Brahman. And then what is nirvana? Nirvana means something like blowing out the mind, right? The mind, so when we say blow your mind, right? It's like blowing out a candle. You blow out the flame, the mind is no more. So the dissolution of the self in Brahman is one translation. It's a translation that I've used for brahma-nirvāṇa. We're going to see what other people say. What is brahma-nirvāṇa? This is also used, how many times is it used? It's used at least one other time in the Gita. Probably only 2 or 3 times in the Gita. And why why does it say brahma-nirvāṇaṁ and not just nirvana? Well, nirvana is more of a Buddhist term. We don't generally think of this as a Hindu term. It kind of got co-opted by the Buddhists. Remember that Buddha was a Hindu originally, right? So maybe this is to differentiate itself from the Buddhist understanding of nirvana. And I'm sure there's been people that have written about this. I just have not seen those academic papers, but I would think there would be a scholar that would say, well, maybe this was to differentiate it from the nirvana of Buddhism. And maybe there is a distinction between the Hindu version of nirvana and the Buddhist version of nirvana. And keep in mind that the Bhagavad Gita probably came after the time of Buddha. Buddha lived about 2,500 years ago. Most scholars think that the Bhagavad Gita was probably written around 200 or 100 BCE. So that means a few hundred years maybe after the time of Buddha. Of course, this text could have been transmitted orally, so we don't know. It could have been older, could have been transmitted orally. But it was probably written down around between 100 and 200 BCE, which again is 300 years after the time of Buddha. If Buddha ever even existed, maybe he was a mythological character. We don't know. I mean, my sense, if you want to know my opinion, I think I don't know about the Mahabharata as a whole. I think it's probably based in historical truth. I don't know if we know. I know there are people that who are very firm in setting a date for the war, the war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and when this all took place, and some people say it was like 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, or however many years ago, which would set it way back, much further than what scholars think that this is probably, almost in the time of Jesus. We're talking that this came into being, this story. Now, I would say that there's probably some historical truth, just like there's probably some historical truth to the Bible, to the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. But it's highly doubtful that a lot of the mythological stuff actually really happened historically. It might have happened on some other plane of reality, but not on the earth plane. And I would say that it's true with this as well. That this could very well be a true story. The whole Mahabharata could be true, but not historically true. Maybe it's true on some other, on some mythological level of reality. and I do believe that there are those levels that you can tune into. So and those levels of reality might even be more real than this plane of existence. This is a whole another topic, but just to kind of get into a little bit more of the metaphysics of all this, and the academic study and the scholarship. So let's go through the verse again, and let's talk about what are some of the issues with the verse. What makes it hard to translate? What are the sticking points or the stumbling blocks in translating this particular verse? First of all, we have the term yatīnā, which I have translated here as ascetics. That might not even be the best translation. Let's see what other people say for that particular word. The word yata is used. It's even used here in this verse. It means like restraint or control, kind of like yama, the word yama. So yatīnā is like someone who practices self-restraint, and that's an ascetic, right? Who but an ascetic practices self-restraint? So yatīnā is not bad. I mean, ascetic is not bad for yatīnā. Kāma-krodha-viyuktānā, pretty self-explanatory. That's not problematic. Some people might translate kama as desire. Some people might translate it as lust. Krodha, some people translate it as anger. Some people translate it as wrath. So we'll see that, and we'll talk about maybe, why might you say desire for kama as opposed to lust, or why might you say lust as opposed to desire? You know the Kama Sutra, right? The Kama Sutra is the sutra about kama. What does kama mean? I mean, more broadly, kama is desire. More specifically, you could say lust. But that's questionable. It's like how you translate kama there, how you translate krodha. Whose thoughts are controlled, yata-chetasā, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's not problematic. Who are knowers of the self, vidita-ātmanā, also not problematic. But then brahma-nirvāṇaṁ, what is that? So how would you translate abhito brahma-nirvāṇaṁ vartate? So really the main issues are, how do you translate yatīnā, and how do you translate this last part, abhita brahma-nirvāṇaṁ vartate? All right. So my English translation again is for those ascetics who have freed themselves from desire and anger, whose thoughts are controlled, who are knowers of the self. Brahma-nirvāṇa lies close, but I would say the dissolution of the self in Brahman lies close. That's how I would translate that, and I'm going to change that right now. The dissolution of the self in Brahman lies close. Okay? So, that's the Allowah translation, more or less. What does Winthrop Sargent say? He says, to those ascetics, so he has ascetics, who have cast aside desire and anger. So he has cast aside, and he has desire and anger for kama and krodha, whose thought is controlled, who are knowers of the self. So he has, who are knowers of the self, that's what I have. The bliss of Brahman exists everywhere. So he translates bliss of Brahman for brahma-nirvāṇa. And he says exists everywhere as opposed to lies close. I had lies close. Why would it be lies close? It lies, it exists, it works, it turns. Vartate. Abhita. Where's the abhita here? Oh, close or near. It is close. Maybe is close is better. And I don't know why Winthrop Sargent says it exists everywhere. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what other people say, though. Ramana Maharshi, this is one of his 42 verses that he thought were the most essential for his particular teaching. He thought this was among the 42 verses that really got to the heart of the Gita for him. In respect of those monks, so yatīnā is monks who are free from lust and anger, and having subdued their mind, have realized their self. So lust, he translates kama as lust. The ultimate beatitude, called liberation, is a fait accompli from all sides. What is a fait accompli? This is a French term. My dad used to use this term a lot, meaning that it is inevitable, right? It's an accomplished fact. Meaning Once you've subdued your mind, you freed yourself from lust and anger, kāma-krodha. If you realize the self, you have fulfilled the conditions necessary to have this ultimate beatitude called liberation. Now, the problem with this translation is it doesn't include Brahma there, right? Brahma-nirvāṇaṁ. And it doesn't have, it's a little bit of a paraphrase. It's a little bit of a free translation. Nothing wrong with it. The fait accompli is interesting. I don't think Ramana Maharshi did the English. I think someone else did, but it's an interesting, different, unique. It's unique. Swami Shivananda, absolute freedom or Brahmic bliss. So he has that in parentheses. So he does translate there Brahma-nirvāṇa. He translates it like Winthrop Sargent. The bliss of Brahman is how Winthrop Sargent translated it. He also translated it as absolute freedom, exists on all sides. So that's the same as Ramana Maharshi. Similar to Winthrop Sargent, exists everywhere. So I might consider, now that I've seen this, I might consider changing that too, because there seems to be some consensus on this, but let's see what other people say. For those self-controlled ascetics, so he's modifying what does ascetic mean by using the word self-controlled, although that's a little bit redundant, but that's okay. Who are free from desire and anger, so he has desire instead of lust, who have controlled their thoughts and who have realized the self. Vidita-ātmanā. All right. So, all right, we'll keep that in mind. Shivananda, Radhakrishnan. To those austere souls, yatis, so he actually includes, I guess in India they are known, there's a term for this, for these people that are the yatis. These are the yatis, austere souls. So instead of ascetic, he has austere souls, which is an interesting translation. Who are delivered from desire and anger, and who have subdued their minds and have knowledge of the self, near to them. So he has near to them, which is kind of like closer to the seemingly the more exact translation, lies the beatitude of God. So this is actually closer to what I had Brahma-nirvāṇa lies close or nearby, whereas the three others that we saw before this had something more like on all sides or everywhere. And he has the beatitude of God, which basically is like the bliss, right? So that's similar to everyone else except myself. That Brahma-nirvāṇa would be the bliss, right? Ramana Maharshi also has beatitude. He has ultimate beatitude. So, beatitude is a nice word, right? Beatitude. And some people might say, well, that's too biblical. There's the Beatitudes of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. Well, it's, they don't have a monopoly on that term, right? Beatitude really just means like the blessing, the bliss, whatever. Let's go on. Swami Nikalananda, those who are free from lust and anger, so he has lust, who have freed their minds and realized the self, those sannyasis, so these are, sannyasi is a renunciate, those sannyasis, both here and hereafter, attain freedom in Brahman. So he understands this term abhita is like here and hereafter, which I don't know if that's the best translation, actually, for this particular term. They attain freedom in Brahman. Nirvana here is freedom. We also saw that term with Shivananda, absolute freedom. We also saw that in Ramana Maharshi used the word liberation. So a bunch of these guys are using freedom or liberation, although doesn't exactly say that. Brahma-nirvana doesn't, but that seems to be seems to be the sense. It's like moksha, right? It's liberation, but it doesn't exactly say it. So that's kind of an addition, or maybe a translation, a free translation of nirvana. Okay, A. Mahadeva Shastri, with Shankara's commentary, says, to the devotees, right? So he's using the word devotee, who are free from desire and anger, who have controlled their thought, who have known the self, Brahma's bliss. So bliss exists everywhere. So this is very similar to Winthrop Sargent, and the beatitude and the bliss that others have had as well. But the idea of exists everywhere, that's how Winthrop Sargent phrased it. He has devotees, maybe not the best translation of yatīnā, because it doesn't, I mean, in a sense, that's what a true devotee is, but ascetic or austere soul gives you more of a sense of that these are people that are engaged with controlling, subduing their senses, controlling their mind, which is not what all devotees necessarily do. Aurobindo, yatis. So he's using the word yati, which Radhakrishna only had in parentheses. Now he's using it out of parentheses, but then he has in parentheses those who practice self-mastery by yoga and austerity. So being very clear with what a yati is, who are delivered from desire and wrath. So he's translating krodha as wrath, not anger, and have gained self-mastery. For them, nirvana in the Brahman exists all about them, encompasses them. They already live in it because they have knowledge of the self. So he's filling it out. He's filling out what is meant by abhita here, and he's saying they're swimming in Brahman, right? They're in it because they've conquered their mind, and they are living in the reality, right? He doesn't translate brahma-nirvana except to say nirvana in the Brahman. So he's using the, which is interesting. Nirvana in the Brahman exists all about them, encompasses them. They already live in it because they have knowledge of the self. So it's fascinating to see all these different ways of translating the same words, right? Gandhi, rid of lust and wrath. So he's not translating kama and krodha as desire and anger, but he's going with the deadly sins, right, of lust and wrath. It's not just about desire, because desire isn't necessarily bad, and maybe for Gandhi, anger isn't necessarily always bad, right? But lust and wrath would be. So rid of lust and wrath, masters of themselves, the ascetics, so he's using the word ascetics, who have realized Atman, find oneness with Brahman. So he's translating nirvana as oneness everywhere around them, right? Which is similar to Aurobindo and what some others also said. He's not just saying everywhere, he's saying everywhere around them, which is a little redundant, maybe. Maybe he's also trying to explain what that means. What does it mean to say it's close? I mean, that's the problem with abhita, is like to say, well, it's close. Is it close? Or like they close to it, or are they in it, right? That would be the distinction. It's like, well, and it does make a difference for the meaning, because it's like, what else do they need to do to get there? Is it close, or are they already there? So Aurobindo tried to clarify that by saying it exists all about them, encompasses them, they already live in it. Gandhi also tries to explain that they are in it, right? They have the oneness with Brahman. And it's everywhere. They see it everywhere, right? That's the problem with my translation, and that's why I might want to change that, is the dissolution of the self in Brahman lies close. Well, does it lie close, or are they already there, right? So that's the problem with an exact translation, right? And that's why I might want to change that. So I have to think about that. All right, going on. Free from eknat eswaran, free from anger and selfish desire. He changes the order, which might be a little confusing. But he adds selfish to desire, because not all desires are necessarily bad. He's saying selfish desire. Unified in mind, those who follow the path of yoga and realize the self are established forever in that supreme state. So he's translating brahma-nirvāṇa here as that supreme state. I mean, he's got the basic gist of it. It's definitely the freest translation I think we've seen, right? This is this verse does not mention yoga. Doesn't say established forever. Doesn't really say supreme state. I mean, that's definitely a very free translation. Unified in mind is not there either. Let's see, what does it have? It has yata-chetasā. It means more of like controlled mind, restrained mind. So he's doing a more free translation. It's not wrong. It's just not, it's like if you want a more exact translation of what the words are actually saying, that's not it. But he also has the general sense of it. Swami Gambhirananda, who apparently has a very good translation, it seems that he does, to the monks, so he's using the word monks, who have control over their internal organ, it's interesting, who are free from desire and anger, who have realized the self, Brahman, which is final emancipation, so nirvana here is final emancipation, is present as a fact either way. Is present, in parentheses, as a fact either way. They have control over their internal organ. Is the mind the internal organ, or what is the internal organ here? Who are free from desire and anger, who have realized the self, Brahman, which is final emancipation, is present as a fact either way. I'm not sure about this one. But, again, none of these translations are really bad. They're just, I'd have to know what his reasoning there for doing that, and it's definitely different than, it's unique. It's different than anyone else. A couple of things that he says there: the internal organ, and final emancipation is present as a fact either way. All right, but let's go on. Prabhavananda and Isherwood. Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood. Self-controlled, cut free from desire, curbing the heart and knowing the Atman, man finds nirvana that is in Brahman, both here and hereafter. All right, this is again a somewhat free translation. The curbing the heart is not there. I might want to move a couple things here because it's starting to rain. Let me do this real quick. Curbing the heart. Curbing the heart is not there. Self-control is there. Cut free from desire, not really there. Man finds nirvana, doesn't have man there. Doesn't have, not really translating yatīnā here. Finds nirvana that is in Brahman. Not defining what nirvana is, both here and hereafter. This is similar to someone that we saw earlier, which we said here and hereafter does not seem to be there in that in the translation of abhita. But it's not horrible. It's got the general meaning. So we'll go on. You know, it's hard to put down some of these guys because they were so up there. You can't put down anyone really. I mean, these are all good. I don't want to. I'm not here to put anyone down or criticize anyone. I'm just, I want to look at more of like, I look at it from the reader's perspective, right? It's all about for the people, right? The person reading this, are they going to understand it from what is being said, right? It's not that they're wrong, that anyone's wrong, but is there a way to put this that is more clear, that is more understandable, that is more going to be useful to the person reading it? Now, that's granted, that is a matter of opinion, because what someone finds useful or helpful, another person might not. It's in the eye of the beholder. So it's hard to make that kind of judgment. But Srila Prabhupada, those who are free from anger and all material desires. So he's adding all material to desire. He's clarifying that it's all desire, all material desires, who are, and he's changing, like someone else did, he's changing the order. Eknatheswaran did the same thing. Who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme, in the very near future. Now, this is an interesting translation. This last part especially, are assured of liberation in the Supreme. He's translating Brahman as Supreme. He's translating Nirvana as liberation, which we have seen. We've seen the freedom, the liberation before. We've seen the Supreme before. But the new thing really here is that he's saying they've not gotten there yet, right? It's near, but they're not there yet, which is an interesting, and that, so this gives me hope for how I translate it. And maybe this is what the verse is really saying, is that they're not actually, they haven't been fully liberated. They're still in their body, right? They're still in the world. They're not maybe fully in that liberation, in that liberated state of awareness yet. But they will be. They're short of it. So this is one case where, I would say that Prabhupada's translation is, sometimes I quibble a little bit with his translations. This is one where, he doesn't really translate yatīnā here. he adds some things that are not there. But he's got something interesting there, which I think is worth considering. Let's see what Jeffrey Armstrong says. He's in the same tradition, I believe. Those yogis, so he's translating it, yatīnā as yogis, who roam freely throughout the world and who no longer experience kāma and krodha. Now, roam freely throughout the world maybe is a reference to what they do in India, that they roam, that these guys roam around, right? There's yogis that roam, the sadhus. Their thoughts controlled and focused only upon their atma experience the joy of Brahman. So this is like the bliss or the joy or the beatitude, right? A brahma-nirvāṇaṁ at all times. Now, so he's translating it at all times, which is actually different than Prabhupada. So my question is, why did Jeffrey Armstrong do his translation? If he is a follower of this tradition, isn't Prabhupada's translation enough, right? Why did he feel like he needed to do a new translation of the Gita, especially because Prabhupada's Gita is so highly considered, at least by people in the tradition and many people in the world, see this as the gold standard of translations. It could be, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but why would anyone feel that they need, including myself, why would they feel that they need to do a new translation? I mean, literally millions of copies of Prabhupada's Gita are in circulation. We're talking probably I would think at least 5 million copies, which is incredible, especially for a 900-page book or something. It's kind of like, it's a very high number of copies of this translation, more than any other, I think, any other translation. Eknath translation might be, I don't know what his is. Maybe it's close to 1 million. Who knows? But the question is, why would Jeffrey Armstrong feel like he needed to do a new translation? And has he spoken about that particular issue? I'm curious myself. All right, so B.G. Narasingha is next. Those sannyasis who constantly endeavor for perfection, who have controlled their mind, who are self-realized, who are free from lust and anger. So he's using lust, he's using sannyasi for yatīnā, he's using lust for kāma. Soon achieve liberation in the Supreme. So he's using Supreme for Brahman, like Prabhupada. He's using liberation, which others have done as well. Freedom, liberation. And he's also saying soon, they're not there yet, right? He's like Prabhupada. He's saying they're not, they're not completely there yet. They're on their way, right? So you see that not everyone, some people say they're there, some people say they're not there quite yet, but everyone is like, whether they're there or they're not there, they're on their way. Free from desire and anger, Samitat-ātmananda, striving with controlled minds, absorption in Brahman is near for those who know Atma. So he's also saying, similar, it's near, right? His translation is very succinct. And he's also translating brahma-nirvāṇaṁ as absorption in Brahman, like basically merging with Brahman. Which I would say is basically the idea, I think, of brahma-nirvāṇaṁ. I don't know why people are translating nirvana as bliss or beatitude. It depends how you understand, ultimate reality. What is ultimate reality? Is ultimate reality bliss? Is it beatitude? Is there a self that can feel bliss or beatitude? Or is that just a term that is pointing to what it is? Anyway, Sri Purohit Swami says saints who know themselves, who control their minds, and feel neither desire nor anger, find eternal bliss everywhere. So he's translating a saint. This is the first time we've seen the word saint. They find it everywhere, so it's not just near, it's everywhere. Okay. Anyway, we'll go on. Swami Mukundananda, for those sannyasis, renunciates, who have broken out of anger and lust. So he has lust through constant effort, who have subdued their mind and are self-realized, liberation from material existence. So brahma-nirvāṇaṁ is liberation from material existence for him, is both here and hereafter. So he has the same as a couple other people had the here and hereafter, which isn't necessarily, I mean, we'd have to look up what abhita, what are some of the different meanings of the term. We'd really have to look into that. But my guess is that some of these people are relying on other people's translations, and if they do, then they're going to use the translation that they're relying upon. One of the reasons I'm doing this is so that I'm not relying too much on any one translation, but I'm looking at a lot of different translations to see what the issue is, right? And I think we're seeing what the issue is here. Jayadayal Goyanka, Gita Press, to those wise men who are free from lust and anger. So he has wise men, he has lust, who have subdued their mind and have realized God. Brahma, the abode of eternal peace, is present all around. So he has Brahma as opposed to Brahman, which is, I think, a mistake. This is one case where this is probably misleading. Nirvana, the abode of eternal peace, is present all around. I don't know where they're getting all around or everywhere from abhita. We'd have to look at that. Bhagavad-gita.org, for those renounced who are aware of the soul, are self-realized, and who are free from lust and anger. Liberation in the ultimate truth occurs in this life and the next. So here and hereafter. Again, we'd have to look at that and see, is that really the best translation? Let's see what Parama-Kūrna-Devi says. She says, the saintly persons who are completely free from lust and anger and have their consciousness steadily fixed in Brahman, in parentheses, who have realized the self, for them there is brahma-nirvāṇa very soon, in whatever / in whatever way. I'm not sure what she means by that. But the very soon means they're not there yet, right? It's near, they're not quite there yet. But they will be. So it's divided. I think we're seeing like 50% on one side of the divide and 50% on the other side. Google Translate. This is Google Translate version. They are ascetics detached from lust and anger and of controlled minds. Brahma-nirvāṇa exists all around for the knowers of the self. So it translates abhita as all around. Interesting, right? So that kind of gives a little more credence to that side that says that. Finally, we have Sir Edwin Arnold, nigh to the peace of God, meaning near, right, to the peace of God, and all those who pass their days exempt from greed and wrath, subduing self and senses, knowing the soul. So he translates Atman as soul, exclamation point at the end. But nigh is for near, so he's in the camp of those who say near. They're not there yet, but they're close. All right, let's go back to the beginning real quick. This is a long video. Man, if you listen to this, thank you, and congratulations, and I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments. Please feel free to leave them. I have a question for you. Why did you do it? Anyway, kāma-krodha-viyuktānāṁ, yatīnāṁ, yata-chetasām, abhito brahma-nirvāṇaṁ, vartate, vidita-ātmanām. For those ascetics who have freed themselves from desire and anger, whose thoughts are controlled, who are knowers of the self, the dissolution of the self in Brahman lies close. The dissolution of dissolution, brahma-nirvāṇa, Dissolution of the self in Brahman lies close, or is near. I think I would go with is near, because when you say is near, it could mean that they're already there or they're almost there, right? So that would include both meanings. So I might just go with that, because I think that covers both. You cover both your bases. You got your ass covered there. Anyway, thanks for listening, and see you again soon. Hari Om Tat Sat.